So in this video, I'm going to talk about my Among Us board game. The first part of the video is going to be looking at how I made it, and then the second part of the video will be looking at the rules and what my decisions were there. The link to the rules is in the description if you want to download of them, and also to all of the pieces, and credit to the designers of the figurines and also the clean version of the map, also down in the description. But yeah, this is the Isolation Edition Among Us board game. So I 3D printed these figurines, which I found on Thingiverse, created by Liang0108, and linked to them in the description. Huge props to the designer, they're very cool. And basically I just used a bunch of acrylic paints and painted them all unique colours, and I made them all have their own hat, I suppose. So none of the doubling up stuff that you get in the game. But yeah, these are the final figurines. I think they turned out really well. It's my first time painting 3D prints, so yeah, it worked okay. Sadly, the only shiny coloured paint I had was gold, so instead of the silver that they might be in the computer game, they're gold. I think it looks fine. And to be honest, I kind of made this whole board game as an excuse to print out these figurines, so yeah, I was happy with how they turned out. Also, another note at this point, if you aren't familiar with the computer game or the mobile phone game, you should go check it out first before watching this video, because otherwise it might be a bit confusing. So onto the board, I used the base map that user Stark001001 posted on Reddit, and I basically just added a grid, and I added numbers for where the tasks were, a taskbar, a dead body pile, and also a vent color coordinated system, so you can tell which vent goes to which vent. So once I'd finished making the map, I printed it out at my local Officeworks, and it turned out pretty well, although I wouldn't recommend the material I used because it ended up getting damaged quite easily, but yeah, more on that later. Then I created this prototype board folding. This was just on a piece of core flute that I had lying around, so again, wouldn't recommend this material, but it's just what I had, so it worked for me. And then I glued on the canvas material onto the core flute, and I used that matte gel, and also did a coat over the top to keep it all sealed. And yeah, this is how it turned out, and you can see I've had to make some cuts along the fold marks, and also you can see this problem where it's lifting up because it's got the double layer of material trying to fold over. So after that I had to make more cuts, and I used clear tape on the front to get those to not lift up at all, but in the end the clear tape looks not the best, so can't recommend that. Also, you can probably see here the back's just reinforced with like red duct tape, and that just helps keep them in place, and I was really happy with how it folded in the end. So with the board done, then I just had to print out some more pieces. I'll link to the document with all of these parts on it in the description. So the first pieces are the task markers. It's 120 numbers. There's these 12 dead body markers. The imposter cards, so I just glued them on top of some old cards that I had. You need a 6-sided and a 12-sided die for movement. And then there's the 12 crew cards as well, which I glued on as well, the same. And of course the figurines, which I already showed a fair bit. So now that we have all the pieces, it's onto the rules. So first of all, the aim of the game. So it's actually just the same as the normal game. It's if you're a crewmate, vote out the imposters. If you're an imposter, kill all the crewmates. And of course you can always win by doing all the tasks. So onto the setup phase of the game. The first part of the setup is to decide how many tasks you want to do. In this example, I'll do 8 crewmates with 3 tasks each, so 24 in total. Then you grab the taskbar marker, which is another file that I forgot to mention before, but you place it on the number, and that tells you where the end of the taskbar is for this game. So you only need to fill up to the left of that spot. And then once you've done that, everyone grabs the number of tasks that you've decided on, and this includes the imposters. You don't know who you are at the moment, but then you need to keep these a secret from everyone else. so no one knows how many tasks you've done at any given time, and basically the imposters can just leave theirs without doing any tasks. So at this point you want to decide how long to set a timer for in the meetings if a dead body is reported or an emergency meeting's called, and you place everyone's player markers in the cafeteria. You unanimously decide who's going to start. You can do this by choosing someone like the tallest or the youngest, etc. You place all the dead body markers upside down on their spot. You get all of the crew and the imposter cards together. In this case we have 8 crew cards and 2 imposter cards, and then you shuffle them. It's really hard to shuffle this few cards like a normal deck of cards, so the shuffle on the table seems to work well. And then you deal everyone their cards so they know if they're a crewmate or an imposter. And now once you get your card, you look at it and you obviously don't show anyone your card because it's a secret. And now the game begins. So everyone closes their eyes. The player who's starting tells the imposters to open their eyes. They can quickly point to their player tokens so that they don't kill each other, and then the player who's starting tells them to shut their eyes again and they can have their go now. So the main mechanic of this game is that only one person can have their eyes open at a time, and that's whoever's having their turn. So at the start of every turn you have to check under your player token to make sure there's not a dead body marker under the player token. If there is a dead body marker, that means you've been killed by the imposter, and for the rest of the round you're not allowed to move your piece. So onto movement. If you are not dead, then you roll the 2 dice. You must always roll both of them, even though only one of them matters if you're not the imposter. So I'll just do a quick example of a crewmate's turn. So at the start of the turn, they always check underneath the player, see if they're dead. They're not dead, so they can go ahead now and roll the die. So first they're just looking at what tasks they have, number 29, so they want to go into the bottom right hand corner of the map. Now once they roll the die, they got a 6 on the 6-sided die, which is the one for crewmates, and they just follow the grid spaces, so the black and white lines, and each one of those steps is a movement, so they've gone 6 spaces. So now for an example of an imposter's turn. So at the start, they don't actually need to check for dead body markers because they shouldn't be dead because they're an imposter. So unlike the crewmate, both of the die rolls matter to them, so their movement ability is the maximum result of either die. So in this example I got a 7 and a 4, so they can go 7 spaces because that was the maximum result. You'll notice that they've gone up to a blue vent now, which means they can jump across to either other blue vent. So now onto ghost movement. If you died in a previous round, you become a ghost and you lay on your side or back like this, and the rule is you can move up to 12 spaces. So now I'm going to explain how to do tasks. So as a crewmate you want to do tasks, and these are the tasks that you've picked out of the bag at the start of the game. So this example, continuing from previously, they roll a 5 and they're trying to get to task 29 still. So they can move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces and then they're at task 29. So to do a task, you just have to end your turn on the corresponding task. If you do that, you can take your little slip of paper that has the task on it and place it to fill up the taskbar. So onto killing. If you are the imposter, then you can kill someone by being in the same square as them. So the same movement rules apply. In this case they roll a 5 and a 12, so they can move up to 12 spaces, and you can see that they're going towards the other player, black, who's standing at a task, and once they reach that square they can grab one of the dead body markers from the pile and place it under black's player token. Now the point of doing this hidden is so that no one can see that black is dead unless they actually also go up to black and check. So it means that on anyone's turn they can't see everyone who's dead on the map, they can only see the people that are near them. And now red is going to hop in the purple vent and vent back over to weapons, I think it is. So now they can say they were way too far away to have done the murder. If you die, on your turn, you check underneath and you've got a dead body marker, then that's the end of your turn. Reporting a body. So to check that your fellow crewmates aren't dead, you need to go to the same squares as them, and then you can lift up their player token and check if they've died. If they have, you can report the body. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can bring everyone's player tokens back to the cafeteria and then yell out murder as loud as you can, and everyone opens their eyes again. And you make sure you put the player who died on their side or back to show that they died. And once you're a ghost, you can't take part in the discussion. So the person who has the timer starts the timer now, and you unanimously decide on who to vote out. So an emergency meeting operates in a very similar way, but instead of finding a dead body, you just have to go to the big central square, which is actually a 3x3 size. So once you're in that square, then you're at the emergency button, so you can bring all of the player tokens back to the cafeteria, making sure to check who's dead and make them into ghosts. You also want to place the dead body markers back in the pile once you've done that, and then once everyone's back in the cafeteria, you yell out emergency meeting, and then everyone opens their eyes and you discuss again with the timer to who to vote out. Another note for these emergency meetings is that once it is finished, the player to the left of whoever called the meeting is the next player to have their turn. So this game always works in a clockwise standard board game fashion. And there they are starting the timer. So in this fun example, Brown was the one that pressed the emergency meeting button, and they have strong suspicions of Red, but Red has suspicions of Blue, and Blue does not have a good defense. So they throw the game. So once you've done all the possible actions on your turn, you can end your turn by passing the die to the next player, tapping them on the shoulder, then closing your eyes, and now they can open their eyes and have their turn. Alright, on to game endings. So there's 3 different ways you can win. The first one is the taskbar completion. So if you're a crewmate and you fill up the full taskbar, then that is the end of the game and you have won. If you are the imposter, then you need to have the same number of crewmates left as imposters to win, and that is the end of the game. If you are a crewmate, you can also win by voting out the imposter. So if all of the imposters are gone, then that's a crewmate win. But yeah, that's about it from me.